to the Medication System Overview webinar. I'm Gina Hunt, a Department of Developmental Services MAP Coordinator, and I'm your webinar presenter. I would like to thank Courtney Dutra and Christine Clifford from the Center for Developmental Disability Evaluation and Research at UMass Medical School for their technical assistance and for hosting this webinar. The target audience for this overview includes, but is not limited to, registered nurses who are MAP trainers or whose job duties include oversight of med systems, licensed practical nurses who may assist an RN or be assigned to a program, and especially non-licensed residential supervisors. Ultimately, the residential supervisor is responsible for maintaining a program's medication system. The purpose of a medication system is twofold: to protect individuals and staff by ensuring safe med administration. There are no specific differences for MAP in an acquired brain injury home, also known as an ABI home, compared to a typical DDS residential home. There are differences for MAP in the Departments of Mental Health and Children and Families residential homes. Those differences will not be reviewed during this presentation. Let's get started. You can use the MAP Technical Assistance tool to follow along. My goals are to give you an overview of MAP expectations in a residential setting and to identify resources available to you. I would use the Tech Assist tool if visiting your program to evaluate the med system. If you're a provider nurse, you may use the exact tool or possibly a variation. It's periodically revised. The most current revision is 3/12/15. You may have printed it out to follow along, so you might want to grab it and a pen in case you want to jot any notes down. 2 modifications were made to the tool. Section E, number 7, is a new addition regarding certified staff who administer high alert meds. Section N, number 7, is a modified statement regarding provider policies. The Tech Assist tool and future revisions are located at the mass.gov website. Rather than searching within the website, you can locate MAP-related information quickly by using the MAP-friendly URL. After the introduction to MAP, if you scroll down the page, you'll see a list of MAP-related links. You can access the Tech tool by clicking on the Oversight and Review link. As I move through the slides, the bottom right corner has a MAP policy reference and the corresponding Tech Tools section. I'll start with Section A of the tool. In regard to healthcare provider order forms, there is no required MAP order form you must use. However, there are order form requirements. MAP Policy Section 10 provides guidance of required HCP order components, such as the 5 rights, a list of allergies, or a statement that there are none. If your form has headings for the HCP to complete, it's preferred that it include only the dose on the form in keeping with how staff are taught. It's recommended that the order form not include headings for strength and amount. The HCP signature space must be at the bottom of the form. If there are multiple pages of orders, each page must be dated and signed. If the form includes pre-printed spaces labeled as Post and Verify, those spaces must be below the HCP signature. Orders are valid for 1 year and typically updated at the time of a person's yearly checkup. Prescriptions are never allowed to be substituted for HCP orders. Telephone fax orders are unique in that they must be posted and verified twice. Once as soon as the med is received into the home and transcribed, and again after it's been signed by the HCP. The purpose of posting and verifying a second time is to check whether the HCP made changes to the order when signing it. Section A, number 5 of the Tech tool states, staff are not using outdated HCP orders which have been superseded by newer orders or by hospital discharge orders. Once hospital discharge orders are in a program, they are the most current and must be used for med administration. Any prior orders are no longer valid. You must contact the PCP and any other prescribing HCP to resume previously ordered meds that were omitted from hospital discharge orders and ask if they want them reordered. If the answer is yes, those orders must be rewritten. A statement such as "resume all meds as previously ordered" is not a complete order and therefore is unacceptable. You can find additional detailed information regarding hospital discharge orders and orders for PRN meds by going to the MAP-friendly URL, click on the MAP Education Tools for Supervisors link. Discharge orders are the topic of Module 4. PRN medication is the Module 6 topic. The DDS MAP coordinators develop these training materials in the form of medication education modules for you to use perhaps during a staff meeting. The 7 module topics created to date were based on trends identified across the state by MAP coordinators in which program staff needed additional support. Each module includes detailed notes pages to you as the trainer to help you prepare for the training. There's a simple pre- and post-test in each module that you can use as staff documentation of training attendance. You'll find the content of each module includes situations and how to manage them that are covered in greater detail than in basic MAP training. If you have a suggestion for an additional topic, please don't hesitate to let your MAP coordinator know. On a monthly basis, HCP orders, pharmacy labels, and med sheets must be checked by 2 staff, ideally at the same time. Each staff should initial or sign the med sheets reviewed. These comparisons represent the required monthly med sheet accuracy check necessary before the start of a new month. If I were reviewing the med system in your program, I compare the HCP order and med sheet and would ask you to read the information on the pharmacy label out loud. I will also ask you what internal system is in place to monitor that meds are being given as prescribed. Some providers have very sophisticated internal quality assurance systems. Some even have a QA department. These systems ensure the program is being managed to meet all regulatory requirements. Many providers include blister pack monitoring as part of their system. I'll cover this in greater detail later. Although not required, it's a very effective method used to determine whether or not meds are given as prescribed. Vital signs is the topic of Section B. There's a requirement to consult with the HCP to determine whether or not vital signs are needed in relation to med administration. To meet this requirement, order forms typically include a statement such as, "If vital signs are required, please include the parameters." Parameters are written guidelines so that your staff know what to do if the vital sign they take are not within the guidelines as ordered. A nurse, HCP, pharmacist, paramedic, or EMT can provide vital sign training. Supporting documentation for this or any training at a minimum must include the training content, date, name, and contact information of the trainer, and a list of staff attending. Training documentation must be kept in your program. Most supervisors use a 3-ring binder to keep the training material organized. This is an example of the requirement to document the vital sign taken on a med sheet either above or below staff initials. You can see in the special instructions section the parameters ordered, what to do if the pulse is outside of the parameters, and when to notify the HCP. When the vital sign is outside of the ordered parameters, your staff must write a corresponding med progress note explaining the issue. So if you take a look at this, you can see how staff documented what happened, that the HCP was notified, and what they're expected to do next. Also notice that staff wrote through the boxes and columns. Staff should use as many lines as needed to write a thorough note. Section C of the tool covers medication documentation. If I were reviewing the current month's med sheets in your program, I would ask you to look at one of the med sheets where meds had been given throughout the day and give me the initials of all staff administering meds. Then I would ask that you look for and tell me if there's a corresponding staff signature at the bottom of the med sheet. You most likely have a system in place to routinely review med sheet documentation. When you're reviewing, if you notice a blank space, you should be questioning staff to see if the med was administered or not. Ideally, you want to encourage all staff initialing a med sheet who notice a blank space where there should be initials to contact you. It's important for you to determine if this is a documentation issue, meaning staff gave the med but forgot to initial, or if the med was not given as prescribed, in which case a MAP consultant must be notified immediately. When you're reviewing, if you notice staff initials but no pulse taken as ordered, it's important for you to determine if this also is a documentation issue, meaning staff gave the med but forgot to document the pulse. If the med was given and the pulse was not taken, this is a med occurrence and a MAP consultant must be notified immediately. These are other examples of when your staff would be writing med progress notes. If a med is refused, I expect to see the circled initials on the front side of the med sheet, a corresponding progress note indicating what med was refused, that the HCP was notified, what the recommendation was, if anything, and that a supervisor was notified. This section of the tool prompts me to ensure allergies are written on med sheets, HCP orders, and emergency fact sheets, and that emergency fact sheets include medications. A list of meds on a separate document near the emergency fact sheet is acceptable. If an individual has PRN bowel or seizure meds, data must be readily available for cross-reference so your staff can determine whether or not a PRN med must be administered. If you have someone with a seizure disorder, I will ask you to show me documentation of their last known seizure. Section D of the tool prompts me to ensure staff initialing the med sheets as administering meds have documented proof of current MAP certification on site. During a site visit, I want to see either a certification letter for each staff or a master list with their expiration date. As you know, MAP certification is good for 2 years. If relief staff is used for med administration, their certification letter or a master list with their expiration date must be on site also. In addition to the mass.gov website, another resource for you is the DNS Diversified Technologies website. DNS is the independent testing company. Their Massachusetts homepage probably looks familiar to many of you. At the bottom left of the screen, you see a green area labeled MAP Online Registry. If you click the public verification button just under it and follow the prompts, you can print out staff certification letters. Section E is titled Ancillary Practices. One topic covered here is blood glucose testing. If testing is done in your program, please note the expectations listed on the slide. The policy manual outlines blood glucose training requirements. The training must be conducted by a licensed nurse, pharmacist, or HCP. Staff must be MAP certified to perform blood glucose testing. This section also references what's called a CLIA. CLIA stands for Clinical Laboratory Improvements Amendment. A CLIA waiver allows licensed or MAP certified staff or an individual to conduct testing in a program setting. There is an application process and a $200 fee. DPH issues one CLIA to a provider which covers all programs. It's good for 2 years, and a copy should be kept in your program area if it applies. The link to a CLIA application is located by using the map-friendly URL. Scroll down the page. You'll see a related links category. Click on the Clinical Laboratory Program link, which brings you here. Notice the URL at the top of your screen. Using it will bring you directly to this page. There is no MAP policy regarding PT-INR testing. If you support an individual who receives a blood thinner, such as Coumadin, you may be very familiar with the testing process. This type of test is usually handled through a Coumadin clinic. Please note that if PT-INR self-testing is managed in your program, it may not be done by MAP-certified staff. If an individual is capable of self-testing, which means performing the test, keeping control of the equipment, reporting results, receiving the dosing instructions from the HCP, and so on, it can be done by the individual. If an individual requires any support in the process, it is not self-testing. MAP-certified staff cannot assist, however, licensed staff can. Section E, number 7, is one of the new additions to the tool. If you have individuals with HCP orders for any of these meds, MAP-certified staff who administer them must receive additional training. There are specific training requirements. I will ask you to show me supporting training documentation in the form of required evaluation tools located in the policy manual. I'll also ask to see individualized protocols. You can find training material for high alert medication online by using the map-friendly URL. Click DDS Map Webinars link. Once on this page, scroll down, and you'll see high alert medication training material. Also included in this section is GJ tubes. MAP-certified staff may administer meds through these routes with additional specialized training. A HCP or RN can provide GJ tube training. It's not required that the RN be a MAP trainer. In addition to a required competency evaluation tool, staff must be current in first aid, CPR, and vital signs. GJ tube training is good for 2 years as long as staff routinely administer meds via these routes. If not, the policy goes into detail regarding retraining requirements necessary before 2 years. Staff do not need to be certified to administer a nutritional feeding. However, staff must be trained. A solution such as Ensure is not considered a medication in MAP. EpiPens are referenced in this section. MAP-certified staff may administer an EpiPen with additional specialized training. A HCP, RN, pharmacist, physician assistant, paramedic, or EMT can provide EpiPen training. If you have an individual with an order for an EpiPen, you should be checking training records to ensure each staff has the required competency evaluation tool and is current in first aid, CPR, and vital sign trainings. EpiPen training is good for 1 year. Retraining is required for both types of specialized training anytime the HCP order changes. Except for an EpiPen, there is no approved specialized training program for any other injectable medication, which means at this time, insulin may only be administered by a nursing service such as the VNA or provider nursing staff. Licensed staff need an order. The insulin order must include specific parameters on when the insulin is to be held, and when to notify the HCP. Notification of the HCP must be documented with recommendations, if any. A nursing service has its own documentation requirements, usually consisting of a file maintained in the home. The nursing service may communicate directly with the HCP and obtain new insulin orders if needed. Many times a change in insulin is in the form of a telephone order taken by the nurse. It's not unusual for these orders to remain unsigned by the HCP for up to 60 days. Since the nurse is administering the insulin and certified staff is not following the order, this is allowed. It is recommended that you ask for and keep a copy of the nursing service policy in regard to obtaining a HCP signature on a telephone order. Also, anytime the nurse obtains a new insulin order, ask for a copy so that you can put it in the med book. As far as documenting insulin administration, you'll need to make sure the insulin order is transcribed on the med sheet. The med sheet should clearly state insulin is administered by nursing service. Certified staff should never initial the med sheet next to the insulin. If at any point the insulin order changes, certified staff must DC the previous order on the med sheet and transcribe the new one just like any other med. And this is important. The nursing service should not have a key or know the combination to unlock the med area. If an individual is in the process of learning to self-administer insulin, they're considered non-self-administering during the transition. All MAP rules apply, which means the training program must be conducted by licensed staff only. These items cannot be placed in household trash. A container designed for sharps disposal must be used. Check your local community for disposal sites. Contact the site for drop-off times and disposal restrictions before bringing the container. Oxygen is a Schedule 6 medication. Training guidelines are located in the MAP policy manual. The vendor who supplies the equipment will many times provide staff training. If someone in your program is receiving oxygen, I will ask to see supporting training documentation. Section F covers controlled countable substance packaging. You'll want to monitor the integrity of the packaging to ensure there's no evidence of tampering, such as tape or glue on a blister pack. Your program may use OPUS cassettes. There shouldn't be any spare tablets included in the cassette if the med is countable. If the med is non-countable, there are 3 options to choose from for managing spare tablets if they're included. Option 1 is ask the pharmacy not to include them. Option 2 is dispose of the spare tablets following the disposal process so that the cassettes are returned empty. Or option 3 is develop an inventory system if the spare tablets are returned. This could be difficult if any of the plastic tabs covering the well containing the spares are opaque so that you can't see the tab. In the example you're viewing, all non-countable tabs, including the spares, are visible. The tamper-resistant packaging requirement includes liquid countable meds, which must be packaged so that once used, no liquid remains in the container. These are tamper-resistant syringes. When the cap is unscrewed, it leaves the red ring. If you can just pull the cap off without unscrewing it, tampering may have occurred. If you have this type of syringe in your program, the total number of prefilled syringes received from the pharmacy are added into the count. Each syringe is subtracted from count as it's used rather than subtracting the total number of milliliters in each syringe. Empty syringes are required to be secured on site, but they do not have to be added to the count. There are 2 Schedule 6 meds that DPH recommends adding to the count. Although it's a recommendation and not a requirement, the reason for doing so is that both meds are known to be highly addictive. If you follow the recommendation, please note that a pharmacy cannot stamp a red C on the package as it's not formally categorized as a countable med. Some providers require their staff to initial, date, and time the back of a blister package each time a tablet is removed. The packages are then routinely monitored by the supervisor and/or an oversight nurse or both. The frequency varies. For some supervisors, it might be daily, especially when there have been issues. Many review the packages at least weekly. This is an example of what blister pack monitoring documentation looks like. Only the back of the package is written on, never the front. It's not a MAP requirement. It is an example of a component of a medication monitoring system that you could consider implementing. Count book documentation is covered in Section G. In addition to keeping documentation of all prescription meds ordered and received, countable substances require entry into a count book. I'll look at your count book to ensure it's bound with no loose pages, and using the index as my guide, I'll conduct a count with you. Documentation should be clear and easy to read. If more than one line is needed, then your staff should use as many as they need. The documentation should not be squeezed into a space so small that it can't be read. I will ask you about staffing patterns. Counts should occur every time control of the med keys are passed. Usually this happens at the change of shift. However, if control of the key changes several times within a shift due to appointments, breaks, or other reasons, a count must be conducted each time the keys change hands. If a certified staff is alone or another certified staff is not available when coming onto or leaving a shift, then the staff must count the meds alone and document single-person count in the space near their name on the shift count sheet. There are several areas within the count book where 2 certified or licensed staff signatures are required. The purpose of requiring these signatures is to decrease the opportunity for theft. When I review count book documentation, I look for 2 signatures anytime a new count sheet is started, a refill is added into the count, when the count sheet is full and the balance is transferred to a new page. When transferred, I look for 2 signatures at the bottom of the completed page and should see the same 2 signatures at the top of the newly transferred page, and that the amount of medication left on the full page is the same as the amount transferred to the new page. 2 signatures are also required when a countable med is disposed of. The entry must explain the reason for disposal, such as refused, discontinued, or dropped. I will look for the same reason on a corresponding disposal record. For additional information, use the MAP-friendly URL, click on MAP Education Tools for Supervisors. Countable Controlled Substances is Medication Education Module 1. The next topic in this section is drug loss. All prescription med losses must be reported to the Drug Control Program by the first business day after discovery. This includes both countable and non-countable prescription meds, such as antibiotics and seizure meds. The loss of a written prescription is also considered a drug loss and must be reported. I will ask you if your program has any history of drug loss. If your answer is yes, be prepared to show me supporting documentation that the loss was reported. When reported, the Drug Control Program will give you an intake number. An intake number documented in the count book is one example of supporting documentation. A drug loss is not a med occurrence unless the med is omitted as a result. This is the drug incident report form used in the event of a med loss. You can find the form using the URL at the top of the slide. DCP is an acronym for Drug Control Program. Training material regarding the topic of drug loss can be found using the map-friendly URL. Click on Map Education Tools for Supervisors. Drug loss is Module 3. Self-administration of medication is the topic of Section H on the tool. To be considered self-administering, the individual must demonstrate an ability to take medication independently, evidenced by storing their meds so that they're inaccessible to others, understand the type of medication they're on, its purpose, and for what symptoms or condition it's being prescribed, know how often to take it, and staff may verbally remind them, and be familiar with the most common side effects, if any. If an individual is transferring to your program and you're told the person is self-administering, it's in your best interest to temporarily consider them non-self-administering until a self-administration reassessment has been completed, ensuring the definition is met per MAP requirements. If you have an individual in the process of learning to self-administer, all MAP policies apply. I will ask to see the self-med assessment, ISP documentation, any related teaching and support plans, observation sheets, quarterly review notes, and an HCP order indicating the person self-administers. The order must include how many days of medication they may hold. If a pill organizer is used, it may only be packaged by a pharmacist or the individual. For more information on self-administration, use the map-friendly URL. Click on Policies. This brings you to the policy manual. There are no standardized DPH forms related to self-administration. Policy Section 07 does include optional forms for your use. Section I of the tool covers off-site med administration. This is when an individual receives meds any place other than the residential program. Meds for off-site administration must be prepared by the pharmacy. You must ask the pharmacy to split pack the meds, meaning a portion of the meds are packaged for use at the program and the other portion for off-site use. If you have individuals who receive meds off-site, I'll check the med sheet to see that the correct code was used. The DP, W, and S codes are self-explanatory. Progress notes are not needed. If the H code is used, I will also expect to see one progress note indicating where the person is. In addition, I'll ask for the corresponding medication release document and look for two signatures, that of the certified or licensed staff who released the med and the certified or licensed staff who accepted it. There is no standardized DPH med release document. Many providers modify the title of a leave of absence form for this purpose. As with any off-site administration, LOA meds must be prepared by the pharmacy. There is one exception that I'll cover on the next slide. On the med sheet, I'll look to see if the appropriate code is used and that a progress note is written indicating where the person is and for how long. It's not required that a progress note be rewritten every shift while on LOA. I will also ask to see the corresponding LOA form to ensure there are two signatures, that of the certified or licensed staff who released the med and the family member who accepted it. There is no standardized DPH LOA form. If the LOA is unexpected, the pharmacy is contacted, can't prepare the meds on short notice, plus the LOA in duration is less than 72 hours, only in this situation may certified staff prepare the meds as outlined in MAP policy. If unused oral meds are returned to your program following a LOA, the meds must be disposed of. If the person returned early, You could suggest the family keep any unused oral meds for the next visit. However, a system must be implemented to keep track of what the family has. MAP policy specifies that oral meds may not be returned. However, inhalers, eye drops, ear drops, etc. may go back and forth. At this point, can you guess where to locate training material on this topic? You're right. Use the MAP URL, click on MAP Education Tools for Supervisors. LOA is the topic of Module 5. J is the next section on the tech tool. I'll ask to see the system you use to track the ordering and receiving of meds. Be prepared to show me supporting documentation of how you know medication has been ordered and how you know it's been received. Pharmacy receipts must be kept on site for 90 days. Section K covers cleanliness and security. Each individual must have their own med storage container. If an individual's prescription plan requires that meds be filled in excess of a 37-day supply, I'll expect to see supporting documentation in the med book. Acceptable supporting documentation can be a copy of the prescription plan requirement or a copy of the insurance card. If an individual's meds are discontinued or they expire, the meds should be removed from their container and placed elsewhere in the locked med area for disposal. If the med is countable, it continues to be double locked and counted until disposed of. During my visit, I will randomly review med expiration dates. Keys stay with the staff assigned med duties for the shift. The combination to the storage area is known only to MAP certified staff. For emergency purposes, there should be a backup set of keys and a procedure in place regarding how the keys are accessed if needed. The topic of Section L is medication disposal. When disposing of meds, MAP certified staff training now teaches staff to read the med information sheet to see if there are any specific disposal instructions and to flush only if the sheet provides that as an option. If not specific, staff are now taught to remove the med from its original container and place it in a sealable bag, crush it, mix it with liquid soap, used coffee grounds, or moist kitty litter, reseal it, then place that inside of another nondescript container and put it in the trash. Any identifying personal information on the label must be removed from an empty med bottle or empty blister pack before disposal. For expired or discontinued meds, disposal requires 2 MAP certified staff, one of which must be the residential supervisor. A licensed nurse must always dispose of meds with the residential supervisor and sign in the space labeled as staff on a disposal record. If a med is dropped or refused and a supervisor is not available, 2 MAP certified together may dispose of the med if your agency allows. Some agencies prefer to have a supervisor present for all disposals. You want to be sure you're using the most current DPH Disposal Form, which as of today is dated 10/1/13. This form must be used to document the disposal of all prescription meds, which includes countable and non-countable such as Dilantin, Tegretol, or antibiotics. Over-the-counter meds do not require documentation of disposal. However, most agencies want to track OTC med disposal. This same form can be used. As a supervisor, consider pre-filling the top of each disposal form with your agency name, program address, and MAP registration number. Pre-number the bottom of each page and fill in the item numbers. The item number is a sequential, chronological listing of meds disposed of. Each disposal form has room to document the disposal of 6 different meds. The next page would start with item number 7 and so on. You can categorize the disposal records year by year, starting with each year with item number 1 followed by the year. Do not separate disposal forms out by individual. If the med is countable, be sure to fill in the count book number and page number for cross-referencing. Additional information is located using the MAP URL. If you click on Policies, you'll come to the MAP Policy Manual and Forms, which is where the most current disposal record is located. Clicking on MAP Education Tools for Supervisors will get you here. Disposal is Module 2. Policies and Resources are Section M and N on the TechAssist tool. Drug reference sheet and material should be dated within 2 years. I'll ask to see the Administering Meds the Right Way training curriculum and check to see that it's current. I'll also ask each provider policy listed in Section N. Provider policies are based on the corresponding DPH MAP policies, but are customized to reflect the uniqueness of your agency. They're meant to be a resource for your staff. They should be easy to understand and readily accessible. For example, an individual is going on an unplanned leave of absence for a weekend visit, and the pharmacy can't package the meds on short notice. Your staff should be able to quickly locate the agency policy for LOA meds and prepare them using the policy as their guide. Section N, Provider Policies number 7, as mentioned earlier, was modified. If pertinent, I would expect to see policies regarding administration of OTC meds without a pharmacy or HCP label, high alert meds, oxygen, and blood glucose monitoring. The MAP Policy Manual is the single greatest resource for information. If you're new to MAP or it's been a while since you've picked up the policy manual, take the time to read through it. As of today, the most current revision is 1/1/15. Staff education is the topic of Section O. Many providers accomplish ongoing medication education by adding MAP as a standing agenda item to regular staff meetings. The meetings of those minutes reflect the medication-related topics discussed and names of staff attending. Section O also references what's called OTC Method B, an OTC method that doesn't have a pharmacy-generated label on it. If your agency uses this method, I would expect to see that the OTC med was properly verified and staff were trained. So have you memorized the MAP URL yet? Use it to get here. Click on MAP Education Tools for Supervisors. Module 7 covers OTC meds and includes how to manage them if there's no pharmacy-generated label. Any of these modules are examples of what you can use for ongoing medication education based on the training needs of your program staff. The next topic is medication occurrences and is Section P on the tool. Med-occurrence reports, known as MORs, are tracked to monitor the medication system. A med-occurrence is when one of the 5 rights goes wrong. An omission is a subcategory of time. In MAP, only the med-occurrences of certified staff are tracked. There's no formalized system to track errors made by licensed staff who work in MAP programs. Providers are expected to address licensed staff errors internally. A refusal is not a med-occurrence. When a med-occurrence is discovered, staff are taught to immediately call a MAP consultant and follow their recommendation before notifying their supervisor. The MOR data collected statewide is used in part to improve the medication administration program through policy and curriculum revision. While at your program, I'll check to ensure all emergency numbers are readily available near the phone and that the MAP consultants are identified and are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I will also ask to see all original MORs. Most supervisors use a 3-ring binder. Originals must be on site. All med occurrences are submitted electronically to your DDS MAP coordinator via the Home and Community Services Information System, also known as HCSIS. If the individual or the site address is not in the system, you must contact HCSIS customer service to have the information added. The phone number is on the HCSIS homepage. In the meantime, fax the MOR to your regional MAP coordinator. As soon as the individual is added to the system, enter the MOR information. In addition to HCSIS, if you realize the med occurrence is a hotline, a DPH form must be completed and faxed to the DPH clinical reviewer and your MAP coordinator within 24 hours of discovery. A hotline MOR is when medical intervention, illness, injury, or death follow a medication occurrence. This is the DPH MOR form, required only for hotlines. If you're ever required to complete one, it can be found in the MAP Policy Manual or online at the MAP URL. Click on Policies, then you'll see the Policy Manual and a list of forms including the hotline MOR form. Every MOR typically requires documented follow-up to minimize an occurrence from happening again. I'll ask to see documentation of the provider response as entered on an MOR, which is many times identified as staff training. That documentation must be kept on site. Your DDS MAP coordinator will conduct a Tech Assist visit on a mutually convenient date and time following a hotline medication occurrence, although we've been known to schedule a visit for various other reasons. The purpose of any visit is meant to be educational. During the visit, if issues are identified as not meeting a MAP requirement, we'll discuss what needs to be done to make that happen. Each visit is followed with a written report asking a provider to respond with a plan to address issues identified within 60 working days. Revocation is the process in which current MAP certification status is formally listed in the DNS database as revoked. It's a provider responsibility to implement the process. The expectation is that the MAP coordinator be notified. Once notified, we can help guide you in terms of options and next steps. During or even before a site visit, if you have any questions regarding revocation, please don't hesitate to contact your MAP coordinator. The last section on the tech tool is Q, DPH Registered Programs. All programs that meet the criteria for site registration must apply for a Massachusetts Controlled Substance Registration or MCSR number. The same number is also referred to as a MAP number or DPH number. The MCSR is kept at each site where meds are stored. The MCSR allows meds to be stored and certified staff to administer meds in a residential program. It must be renewed yearly. Please note the contact information for the regional DDS MAP coordinators. Carolyn Whittemore covers the Central West region. Mary Dupre covers the Metro region. I cover the Northeast. Susan Canewell covers the Southeast. In addition to the MAP coordinators as resources, please use the information available to you within the mass.gov website or the MAP URL that I am sure by now you have memorized. If you have questions on information presented, please contact your MAP coordinator.